What addiction is the hardest to quit? I've heard a Harvard psychiatrist who specializes in addictions say the addiction that's hardest to treat is the one where the patient says that it makes them feel like a normal person, like it makes them feel like everyone else, because that's a really hard thing to give up, feeling normal. This is exactly why I started doing drugs. Painkillers and meth removed my anxiety and let me feel just normal and able to function around other people. Then one day I got anxiety while high on meth, and it never went away while high. And because you're on meth, the anxiety gets multiplied by 100. I had to be very careful about what I did around other people because I would be shaking so bad that it would give me away. Literally couldn't hold a pen and write my name. 2 years sober in June. I'm an addict, but I'm not the kind that needs to take every last bit or drink every last ounce. I don't even like to be f***ed up, but I need a little alteration constantly. Could be weed, wine, kratom, kava, nicotine, and or caffeine. I'm just addicted to not feeling normal. I've done a lot of inner work, examinations of my trauma, meditation, even exercising a few days a week. I feel so uncomfortable in my skin without just a little nip, toke, pill, or puff. I'm starting to think it could be untreated ADHD. Edit. This is why I love Reddit. The overwhelming majority of these comments are supportive and kind. I feel a fair amount of shame for my shortcomings, but it's so nice to read all these comments from folks just like me. We're all here because we're not all there. Thank you. In my experience, things like coffee, smoking, and drinking are so normalized that people start to look at you funny for not doing it. Was on heavy medication one time and had to stop drinking for a few months. Was also a bartender at the time. People were giving me whole damn lectures about not drinking despite me having a good reason for it. I'm a bartender and people get annoyed if they want me to do a shot with them while I work. Sir, I don't do shots early into the night. Alcohol has been the addiction hardest for me, but I was bad off on it for a very long time. Plus, it's everywhere. Billboards, commercials, every new establishment in my city is a brewery. I had to completely rewire my brain and change my entire social life. It was a damn hard road, and I don't wish it on my worst enemy. Some days were very dark, and other days, you could feel the light. But it is possible. I've been sober for 4 years. Cocaine was hard. Booze was harder. Cancer sticks were the hardest. Took me 2 solid years of trying to quit. I'd go 2 to 3 days, then have a whole pack. I finally waited until I got the flu really bad, and haven't smoked on cigarette in 2,256 days. According to my app, that's 31,578 cigarettes not smoked and over $200,000 not spent. The last pack I purchased was over $17.50 here in California. I was a heavy smoker for 15 years. Quit cold turkey. Never was addicted to porn. I kicked a cocaine habit. Being a high-functioning alcoholic is probably something I'll never be able to beat. Trying to quit drinking hurts me physically and mentally so badly, and it doesn't really affect my life right now, so I justify not putting myself through it. I know I am shortening my life by not quitting, but I still just can't do it. Quitting alcohol can be done. In my experience, it takes time, patience, multiple relapses, and a mindset reset. It has taken me about 3 years to develop a distaste for alcohol, but I was a functional alkie for about 20 years. Go for it. You won't regret it. Scrolling. It's honestly the only thing holding me back from accomplishing so many things in my life. It has such a hold on me. Edit. For those asking, I have 2 freelance work-from-home jobs. I'm finding it harder to stay motivated, complete work, exercise, run errands, cook, eat healthy, etc. Because I work online, the temptation is always there. It's easier to order delivery, stay in bed, and avoid work. Short-form content like YouTube Shorts and Reels are my new issue. One moment you're watching a handful of them. Next thing you know, you haven't moved in 48 minutes and it's dark outside. It really is hypnotism. The worst is when you close out of scrolling for the past 45 minutes, only to hear the silence of the aloneness around you. The thoughts of how you are uninteresting and have nothing to do and no friends starts to set in. You start thinking positively, like, how can I start a new hobby? Maybe I'll look up a video on how to start a knitting project. Opens YouTube, sees, I gave $100,000 to the first person who looked at me. YouTube short. Well, I have to see this real quick. Clicks, next, another 30 minutes of doom scrolling. Food addiction. Because you literally cannot quit, you just have to find a way to moderate your use without ever being able to. You have to completely reshape your relationship with food, which is arguable much harder than just stopping whatever you're addicted to and having an out-of-sight, out-of-mind approach. You cannot ignore food. Even if you were a monk in the Himalayas, you still need to eat. Yeah, with cigarettes or alcohol, the cutting down approach is the biggest barrier to quitting outright. It's a self-defeating attitude, bargaining with your future self. I'll do half the work, you do the other half. But your future self has just gone through the first half and is waiting for a future heroic self to come along and finish the job. Those who go on to successfully quit do so when the realization that you have to quit outright or not at all hits and coincides with the motivation to do so, and you have to go through hell with cold turkey withdrawal. Food addiction is this, but you can't quit cold turkey because turkey is food also. Obviously a joke, but unlike most addictions, it is impossible to stop all food completely and survive the ordeal. People who eat themselves into health oblivion and have to draw themselves out of that to a stable point of health have to go cold turkey every day for the rest of their lives. Meaning, with every meal that they need to survive, they have to expose themselves to a small amount of the drug, but stop the addiction-seeking instincts from taking over continuously. All day, every day. It's hell. The only way to do it is to change who you are as a person. Most people are not capable of doing that. Look at the number of ex-drug and alcohol addicts who say it's all or nothing, they can't even have a single hit or they would be back on the drug full time. I don't know of anyone who successfully went from alcoholic to infrequent and controlled drinking. There are medications, the glutides, that work for people who binge eat to obesity and are showing some small promise for addiction also. But they absolutely require monstrous willpower for most people to successfully control the addiction, food, or drug. Quitting smoking was probably the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And I tried many times before I finally succeeded, but I haven't had a cigarette in 25 years now, and I smoked for 25 years. The hardest addiction to shake is the one that you don't really want to. Unless you're 100% committed to giving it up, it's gonna be hell, no matter what it is. This is what benzodiazepines were for me. I never felt more like myself than when I was on them. Trying to come off of them, I nearly killed myself. I have never really done drugs. Just before having a vasectomy, I got a dose of benzodiazepines straight into my veins. It made me feel so good than when it wore off. It gave me a sense of awe of people who get addicted to them and manage to come off. I developed a panic disorder in my 30s after a traumatic attack. Your post put it into perfect perspective. Off medication, I feel like I'm about to go into surgery 24/7. Benzos made that feeling go away. My primary physician prescribed me all my meds because the wait for a psychiatrist in my rural area of the US was over a year and a half. I realized I had become physically dependent a couple months ago when I ran out of my Xanax for the first time and felt like I had the worst flu ever. Got myself into the hospital and basically forced myself into the mental health care system after 4 years of waiting on a wait list when they heard my story. The way it happened was surreal. No one believed I didn't have any other addictions or previous mental health issues. I couldn't believe I was physically dependent on a scheduled drug either. I got drug tested like 5 times in 2 days. I can't smoke weed, I barely drink. There was nothing to find. And when everything came back negative, they finally believed me. I guess it's rare for people to become dependent, realize it, and nope out ASAP. That's what I did. I don't want to go down that road. I'm sitting here with my taper of Xanax right next to me without craving it, because I finally had people take the time to find the correct mixture of other medications, and I just simply don't need the Xanax most of the time these days. But it was fucking rough detoxing. It's super eye-opening to see that I can have a life that doesn't involve being a slave to benzos, because I genuinely hated being on them. I just hated panicking more. The fucked up part is that it only took seeing a real psychiatrist. She added an antihistamine and upping my SSRI a little bit. That's all I needed. But our system is so messed up that the flowchart my doctor was following didn't lead him to doing those things. He threw random old school sleeping pills at me to try for years with 150 Xanax pills a month as backup. Might get flamed for this, but self-harm. For drugs, yes, the urge is always there, but there's no way to do it and not feel like you relapsed. But self-harm? Instead of cutting, you make the water during your shower too hot or bump into things, totally not on purpose, so you get bruises that hurt, or you fall a lot, or you scratch at your arm, or you accidentally hit yourself randomly. Self-harm, as far as I'm aware, is really the only addiction where you're relapsing, but can pass it as not relapsing, just because you're not doing what you used to. It's like you have all these cheat codes, and especially when the marks that prove you did it once fade, it makes you want to do it all over again. And I don't think there's anything like that with drugs. Is somebody who's been addicted to heroin and cocaine and has been sober for 10 years, I 100% agree with this. To this day, when things get hard and difficult, I no longer consider getting high, but I always consider self-harm. It's something I can do in multiple ways and hide it easily that gives me the relief from whatever I'm feeling. I don't do it anymore, but god damn it. Do I think about it in the difficulty times? I think it's because you can't remove your body from yourself, so it's hard to remove you from the thing that can give you relief. If you are truly addicted to something, they are all hard to quit. However, when your addiction includes with a physical dependency, like crack, heroin, meth, opiates, etc., that is an entire new ball game. Everyone is addicted to something or other. Dope, booze, sex, sugar, cigs, attention, fitness, food, failing in love, gaming, working, social media, etc. So basically, an addiction is not always a bad thing. Unfortunately, addictions can turn problematic when your life is not balanced. This is false. Addiction is always a bad thing, by definition. Everyone has needs, and everyone has habits, including bad ones. Not everyone has an addiction. Needs are different from addictions. Addictions are similar to bad habits in kind, but they are separated by degree and by impact. Sex addiction, by personal experience and numerous professional opinions. Quitting cigarettes and drugs was difficult. Sex addiction is next level, especially now with porn and online content being at our fingertips seconds away. It's like trying to quit drinking and carrying a bottle in your pocket. Also, sex addiction goes back to very early childhood. As a coping mechanism, compulsive masturbation several times a day, and fantasies were a result of complex trauma, CPTSD, from childhood abuse. So, using sex, a deep biological drive, this way as your brain, nervous systems, and body are developing really hardwires it into your being. It's actually amazing what the current brain science knows about all this. The chemicals that are released in the brain, the seeking behavior, etc. Fentanyl, period. I spent 4+ years doing it every day, starting with a half a pill and ending at around 10 to 12 pills a day. I needed it every 2 to 3 hours, other it felt like death was looming over my shoulder or the sky was going to fall. Then, after actually quitting, I was completely incapacitated for nearly 2 months. Couldn't walk, eat, or drink. Could only lay in bed 3 feet from the bathroom door, and most of the time I couldn't make it in time because I was so weak. I thought after that phase it'd be easy. Then I realized I had to relearn how to walk, socialize, stand up, and even breathe. Normal things you would do from day to day was exceedingly hard. I'd use all of my energy for the day getting up and getting food out of the kitchen or stepping outside for fresh air. Then complete exhaustion for the rest of the day like I ran a marathon. I seriously think I could have been in a completely disabling car crash and recovered easier. I spared a lot of details, but fentanyl has my vote. Past 6 months now, still not even close to 100%, but getting a little better every day. You couldn't pay me millions to go back. 3 years clean here as of February 22nd. Same with the usage, several ODs as well. One of the things that really helped me stay clean after a couple of rehab stints was reminding myself, no matter how silly it seems, was that I had free will. I didn't have to do anything I didn't want to do. I didn't have to be miserable every day. Didn't have to spend all my money. Didn't have to get sick or go buy more like clockwork. Didn't have to hide anymore, not eat, sleep all the time, be alone. IDK. It was just a switch flipping almost. If you ever feel tempted again, definitely reread your own comment. You don't want to put yourself through that hell again. It's not worth it. Super proud of your 6 months. Keep up the good work. That's a tough question to answer, and I think to a certain extent it's person specific. For example, I've struggled to use cigarettes most of my life, but my wife doesn't. I'm clean now, but I know if I have even one, I'll be back up to a pack a day in no time. On the other hand, my wife struggles alcohol addiction, whereas I went cold turkey from drinking a handle of whiskey a week without much issue. Just based on physiological response, probably alcohol or heroin, as I've heard cessation both can kill you if you're too dependent. However, things like cigarettes, alcohol, can be harder in a way because they're more ubiquitous in society, advertised openly, and plenty of people use them without ruining their lives. I hate to say it, but you can probably include many prescription pills in that category nowadays. The night I smoked my first cigarette, I was drunk and high, but we were out of booze and pot. I wanted a little bump up, so I asked my boyfriend at the time for a cigarette. He happily obliged. The birthday boy saw this from across the room and let out a big ol' "What the f*** are you doing?" followed by a much softer "lady booby poop." I quit smoking crack. He held his cigarette above his head, shaking it while saying, "I can't. Quit this." Took a puff anyways. Currently smoking as I type this over a decade later. Oops. Smoking, I would say. I was a cocaine addict for 8 years and quit on the spot one day. Same went for alcohol. I gave up smoking for 2 years after starting when I was 12 and quit at 18 for 2 years. I then started again out of the blue and smoked until I was 31. I then quit again and then started smoking again at the age of 38 to the present day in my mid-40s. Porn is a pretty nasty addiction. You can be drug-free, alcohol-free, and even be in shape. But porn is free online and satisfying. But it changes your mentality. It's a gross addiction to have. It can impact your relationships, and God help you if you start paying for it. I'm an addict. My narcissistic partner. I'm sober 29 plus years. Cigarette-free for 20 plus. That's been easier than getting out of this relationship that is abusive on so many levels. It's become a never-ending cycle of just wanting to please her and getting the smallest of rewards. Metaphorically pumping hundreds, thousands of dollars worth of coins into a slot machine just to get a few dollars back. That rush, knowing what I'm doing is bad for me, is my hardest addiction. When my youngest leaves for college, so will I. Smoking, hands down. I've tried many different drugs, gambled a little, porn, basically anything that's addictive. Prescription benzos, painkillers, hell, even prescription amphetamines. They are a walk in the park to quit compared to nicotine. It is the most addictive substance known to man, hands fucking down. This is bullshit. It's because you can go to the shop on the corner and buy a day's supply for $10 with no or minimal negative social consequences, and in most cases, only a distant health concern to worry about. Put a day's supply of RX-grade, dilaudid, and oxycodone in every corner store at a cost of $10 for anyone to walk in and buy. And almost nobody who's now addicted would ever quit opioids for life unless they were in jail for life. And the number of addicted people would absolutely skyrocket within a year or two. Hell, look what the Sacklers caused, and that still required an RX for people to get the stuff. People have been known to literally break their own bones, fall off ladders, and get into car wrecks purposefully in order to maintain an opioid RX. It's not even that uncommon. People who say nicotine is that addictive are being extremely glib. Methamphetamine, amphetamine, Adderall, was easy to quit, and I never became addicted to cocaine. But meth had me from the first use, and it was a brutal withdrawal 2 years later. I have quit smoking cigarettes before, and I would say that tobacco is only just after meth in its difficulty for quitting. But I have never done anything like heroin, nor have I been addicted to opiates. I've never done crack cocaine, so I don't know if those things are harder to quit than meth. I just know meth was the hardest thing to quit that I ever quit. Relapses are common. 2 years later and I am still methamphetamine free, but there are times when I am very tempted. If I knew a dealer right now, I would probably relapse. Or I would probably get some cocaine because I know it doesn't have as strong of an effect on me as the meth did. The temptation is strong at the moment. Quit smoking, no problem. Caffeine is rough, but I've quit a few times. Overeating, that's my hardest. I can't stop. Watch out for nicotine. I smoked for 9 years. I kept quitting for months at a time, no problems. Finally, after 9 years, I quit for good. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. It's over 50 years later and I still can crave a cigarette. I might get scolded for this, but I think some addictions are so similar in terms of difficulty of quitting. Hear me out. Smoking, binge eating, and quitting pills. Not drugs, but let's say you frequently get headaches, rely on Advil, but it could be cured in other ways. I swear all three are addictions that are similar when it comes to difficulty of quitting. They're all coping mechanisms that mask dots attempt to solve a bigger problem. Maybe it's stress, abuse, trauma, avoiding reality, etc. Thank you for watching. Write comments, put likes. Do not forget to watch other videos.